is that the
Good evening,
importance of
Louise, and welcome to
stakeholders
XTV's news broadcast for Monday, December 2, 2024. Making the headlines tonight, official rejects affirmation of overfished stocks. 3 students critical following accident involving basketball team, and minister blames rising cost of locally produced food items on climate change. We take our first break and return with the news in detail.
Mass
On the don't know perfect reach way already.
Welcome back. With your news, I am Marisol Amaya. Several weeks ago, as part of this year's cohort of Earth Journalism Network grant-aided reporting on Belize's blue economy, journalist Marco Lopez published an investigative piece titled Code Red in the Blue. The focus was the status of Belize's fisheries stock and conflicting positions. Under the Belize Fisheries Project, BPF, funded by the Summit Foundation, renowned international fisheries experts determined that 17 commercial fish species are overexploited, and they recommended that critical management measures be instituted to address the crisis state. The Fisheries Department rejected the BPF findings, but Lopez's investigation saw Dr. Richard Appledorn, the scientist who developed Belize's methodology in 1996, confirm that to be using his same methodology now, especially for conch, from almost 3 decades ago would yield inaccurate data, as the methodology is now outdated. He also remarked that the BPF is using one of the latest methodologies available. We sought the opinion of Julie Robinson, Belize's program manager at TNC, on Lopez's report.
I think it is absolutely important for the Fisheries Department, along with the scientists from the Belize Fisheries Project, to really come together to look at the data and to look at the process and the protocols to be able to improve it. So I know that there is a discrepancy between the two, but the way to, I think, really and truly figure out what the actual status of our fisheries is for these groups and the scientists and the technicians to really come together and work together to determine that.
And that's an outside view, because you're not a part of authorities, but authorities at this point have a stance where they are just treating that as completely hands-off, but it's very critical that they actually engage, as you say.
I agree. I mean, I encourage and I highly recommend that the government and the scientists from the Belize Fisheries Project come together, because it's like it takes two. And I know there's been a lot of conflict, but the only way we'll be able to move forward is to be able to utilize the resources that are being offered, as well as the knowledge that we have within country. And so these two really need to come together.
The Fisheries Department did not refute Lopez's report, and today we asked former Fisheries Administrator Beverly Wade, who remains in an official capacity within that sector, to comment. She only admitted that there can be different perspectives based on how a fisheries scientist looks at fisheries data. However, she rejects the affirmation that there is general overfishing.
I know that fisheries management in Belize have always been a collaborative approach. In fact, the NGOs that you're seeing in the room and other NGOs are working constantly with the Fisheries Department, looking at fisheries management. I understand that there are particular issues with that particular project, but I don't think that it's a matter of a hands-off approach. I think the details are not necessarily out there, and I would encourage you to find out about the details one day. With regards to overfishing has always been tagged as a threat. It's not anything that we have, say, as a country, been running away from. It is something that we work with partners to see how you could address aspects of overfishing. I wouldn't say that the resources in Belize are totally overfished. I think that is a very wrong description. But if you're a fisheries scientist, you could well look at the data and to find areas, like we do with our partners on the ground, that we know there are localized overfishing happening here, and what are the strategies that we're now going to employ to those areas of potential threats. The same way we have to look at the threat, our fisheries resources are being impacted by climate change. This is the worst bleaching air we have ever seen in Belize, and the reef is really habitat to those important species that we're looking at. How do we now rationalize that? How do we also rationalize the fact that we're now looking at how development is now approached in this space? The important thing is to ensure that we are able to communicate better, that we're able to share the information with the user base, and also to look at how we take this integrated approach to the resources at the end of the day, because central to it is livelihoods also. And so we have to take into consideration the social and the economic aspects of it.
Fishers told us that fish bought in Honduras ends up in Belize, and one said this is particularly so during the tourism high season. However, Wade affirmed that this is not indicative of our fishery being overfished.
Well, I don't know if you could use importation of fish as a gauge for overfishing. The importation of fish is meant to provide fishers resources for a particular sector. And I'll say this because I have some experience when I was over at the Fisheries Department some years ago with regards to permitting. So what you're actually importing are tuna, some of the other specialities. There's also the importation of some fillet. When you have a developing sector like tourism in Belize and you simply don't have, I don't necessarily agree that it's a matter of the fish not being there. I would say that it's a function also of our capacity, right? So you now have dedicated finfish fishermen in Belize who are producing thousands and thousands of pounds of fillet for a tourism sector. That's a part of the issue. So when you have a sector like that, there's nothing wrong with importation. Countries all over the globe import fish. The important thing for us to do is to look at how fish is doing. The last Healthy Reef report card that was done by the Healthy Reef Initiative, funded by the Summit Foundation, that was launched, I think, a couple months ago, showed that finfish and commercial fish on the reef are rebounding. Something is working. We're doing something good. But that doesn't mean that because we're importing fish, there's no fish out there. You have to look at it more deeply and more comprehensively.
Wade also refuted the conclusion that the Fisheries Department is relying on an outdated methodology for its stock.
I wouldn't agree with that. I think the Fisheries Department continues to engage with partners and scientists globally, cutting-edge science when it comes to species like lobster and conch. I know that even currently, they're engaged with WWF to now look at a comprehensive stock assessment for lobster in Belize with cutting-edge scientists. I'm not here to belittle or to say that the scientists from the Belize Fisheries Project are right, nor am I here to say that they're wrong. As a person who is trained in science, there are always different approaches and different philosophy depending on who you're talking to. I think what is important in Belize is that there's a strategy, there are the approach that you want to take, there's serious considerations that you have to take when looking at fisheries management, and those things would have to be looked at comprehensively. No two countries' approach to fisheries management are the same because we all have different considerations. And I don't think that the Fisheries Department could be branded as being so reckless in a sense, to be just sitting here and to say, you know what, we just did the things from 15, 20 years ago, and that is it.
There was a road traffic accident Friday evening near mile 39 on the Philip Golson Highway that involved the basketball team and coach of Ocean Academy High School out of Keecocker. They were headed to a regional basketball tournament in Orange Walk when the van had tire blowouts and flipped. In total, 10 students and 2 teachers were traveling in the van. As a result, multiple students were injured. According to a statement on Facebook by the school, 6 were treated and released that same night, but 5 remain hospitalized. 3 are in critical condition. Of those, 2 are reported to be in a coma. Family members are taking measures to seek treatment outside for 1 student. The school is asking for donations to its Atlantic Bank account number 100-299-151. On Friday morning, Deputy Prime Minister Honorable Cordell Hyde lamented that as the price of global food items continue to fall, in Belize the costs seem to be rising. Later on Friday, Minister of Agriculture Honorable Amaya explained that the prices of locally produced food items have increased due to the effects of climate change and the losses some farmers have suffered. Mai said it's simply a matter of supply and demand.
Last year, at the same time, we had the inflation spike again. Remember that? Same time, the weather patterns. Not only in Belize, but even in Mexico. Excess rainfall has caused losses to the farmers, right? So you have losses, you have less product, you have it's supply and the supply and control. You know, it is supply and demand. And so the farmers, right now, I got a call a while ago that the farmers in carrots are not looking good. So the farmer would have taken 1,000 pounds, he's taking 500 pounds. His cost gone up, he got losses. So the little carrots he have that are good, he will try to get a better price for it. It's a natural reaction, right? But again, you heard the term climate change over and over again, right? The soybean, we have like, what, 50% of soybean loss right now. So the millers are quick to jump and say, Minister, give us permit to import soybean. I say, wait, buy what the farmer got first, man. Obviously the farmer want limo now because he lost. But last year, when the crop was good and the soybean farmers harvested everything and carried to the mill said, guess what? I got a lot of soybeans, so I'm paying right now, leave it. Even though the poultry price went up, they're going down to the soybean producers. So it's a law of supply and demand.
The DPM also lamented that many Belizeans choose to purchase goods across our borders or via online purchases whenever the holiday season comes around, rather than supporting local businesses, which would help improve the economy.
Go across the border and we spend hundreds of millions of dollars each year. That's hundreds of millions of dollars that could be invested here, that could create jobs here, that could make our families better off here, that could do wonders for this economy, because when that money is invested here, people are able to send their children to school, people are able to build better houses, people are able to open up their business, more jobs are created, the economy continues to bubble. When you spend that money across the border, that money never comes back here. That money goes to enrich some persons. That money goes to better off the lives of so many other people who have no real relation to folks here. And so we have to start looking out for ourselves and start understanding the value of our dollar and what it can mean for improvement and upliftment of our lives here. I think we're not there yet in terms of that maturity, in terms of understanding that we have to spend money with the people who will spend money with us. We have to invest in the businesses that will invest with us.
Two cousins from Belmopan have been reported missing since Wednesday, November 27. The men, 37-year-old Marvin Cante and 32-year-old Juan Carlo Raimundo, were last seen and heard from while they were heading to Belize City. However, on Thursday morning, police reportedly found the vehicle they were traveling in abandoned, with its engine still running at mile 24 on the George Price Highway on the road to the sanitary landfill. There was a trace of blood in the vehicle and one of their house keys was also inside, but there was no trace of the men. The family of the missing cousins has been searching the area and are asking for the public's assistance in locating their missing loved ones. Today, ACP Gilberto Romero shared an update on the investigation.
We are presently conducting several searches in the area of Mile 24, the area of Democracia, through the coastal, the area of Mahogany Heights, but so far no leads and no information as to their whereabouts.
The vehicle was a rented vehicle?
It was not a rented vehicle. They had gotten the vehicle from somebody here in Belmopan, and the vehicle was found in the area of Mile 24 with the engine running.
Have you spoken to that person here in Belmopan?
Yes, several statements have been recorded. Searches continue, but so far nothing.
Did the family give any reason why these men might have been targeted?
They do not know. All they know is that they left in that vehicle and they have not been since.
Where were they heading in the vehicle?
We do not know. All we know is that the vehicle was found at the area of Mile 24.
Rosa Alonso, the ex-common law wife of Raimundo, said that she last contacted him earlier on Wednesday. She had been trying to contact him from that afternoon into the night, but her messages were not delivered.
So in the morning I had to go check on his son because his son lives with him, two of them by themselves at their house. But then I see that the police there at his neighbor's house. So I like, he missing and police there by his house. Let me ask. So I asked the neighbor and he say, I asked him, you know anything about Juan? He said, no, I did try call them, but it looked like he rent a vehicle to him some days before. So he also want to know like what happened because he never come sleep last night because they're a neighbor, so he had noticed. So I asked him what happened with Juan. He said no, he don't know nothing, but the police just come and they tell him they find the car, and the car has some blood drops. So you know, when you hear a news like that, it's been happening around in Belize. So you fear for the worst at the moment, and then they say they can't find a body, they can't find nobody else and nothing else around or in the car. We've been searching from point to point, borders. We've been checking rivers, we've been checking bushes, we've been checking everywhere possible that you would say, this looks suspicious. No, we not find nothing, like nothing to even hold on to, like say, okay, they are okay, or know that nothing, no.
After the break, the Belize Police Department reports implementing a new approach following the latest state of emergency. Stay with us. Welcome back. The news continues. Since the end of the latest state of emergency SOE, crime numbers, particularly in Belize City, have been relatively low when compared to previous years. Commissioner of Police Chester Williams was asked to address the positive trend. He credits a new approach with those who were detained following the recent SOE.
When the SOE would normally be over, there is no follow-up with the guys, and so we find that very quickly they would go back to doing the things that would have landed them in prison under the SOE. And so what we did this time was that we got the team of Baranuri and Futegongara, and on occasions I would join them. I would meet with these guys twice weekly to see what are some of the issues that confronts them, and to provide some semblance of guidance. And this is a continuation to what they did while they were in prison. As you would know, as a part of the SOE, we had Nuri going into the prison twice a week to meet with them. And we also had the prison administration doing the Journey to Freedom program with them while they were there. And so now that they're out, we just try to have that continuity working with them. And then we also have the LIU which continue to do what they can in providing some sense of employment to these young men in different areas where they reside. And then, of course, the efforts of the police patrolling these areas, making sure that we enforce the law, particularly the quality of life offenses, preventing the loitering, the public drinking, and so forth.
The Protected Areas Conservation Trust, PACT, today announced the beginning of the term of a new executive director in the person of Abil Castaneda, who goes over from the Belize Tourism Board, where he served as Chief Tourism Officer. He was also a board member of PACT up until he was selected for the post of executive director. A release from PACT reports that Castaneda has, quote, led the design and implementation of critical national policies, plans, strategies, and programs aimed at fostering sustainable and responsible development within Belize's tourism sector, end quote. It also notes that he has served on multiple national and international committees and boards. He holds a master's degree in tourism management and tourism and travel services management. Our reports are that individuals in conservation have expressed concerns about the move, saying he has no finance or protected areas management background. Minister of Agriculture, Honorable Amaya, on Friday told the media he is pleased with the country's response to the threat of the New World screwworm thus far. Mai said Belize is the only country in the region with a dedicated team hired to deal with the insect, although in Belize's case, the work entails surveillance and not eradication.
I think I'm very satisfied with the work that the ministry is doing, Baja is doing, ICA and Orissa. The relationship between these organizations is very good. I think that in the region, I think we are doing some of the best work. It just shows that when you pull the resources together, intellectual and others, I think we can do a lot. So I'm very satisfied and from what I'm seeing on the ground. And I think that if we continue like this, we will be the only country in Jamaica that does not have screwworm, and hope to keep it like that for a long time. No country in the region has a screwworm program, none. Belize is the only country that has employed people to deal only with screwworm. So while we do not have a screwworm eradication program, we have a screwworm surveillance program. We employed a new veterinarian, a young veterinarian. We're employing another couple people this week, and they are monitoring, visiting all the farms, ensuring that we do not have screwworms.
Mai also listed 5 things that the ministry is monitoring as they work on keeping Belize screwworm free.
First one is education and awareness. Are we doing it? Yes. Are we doing it to the right people? Yes. Those that live on the periphery and the borders of the country from Guatemala, they are well aware. The villages are being informed. We're having meetings with the farmers. So education and awareness is the first one. The second one is control points. Do not move animals from infected areas, or do not move animals if you suspect that they're sick. The third is treat wounds. Are we treating the wounds? Yes. We are telling the farmers now, you cannot have an animal being wounded on the farm and not treating it. You got to treat it. If there's no wounds, the fly cannot lay an egg. If they can't lay an egg, then die. So there's no wounds, there's no flies. 3. The fourth one is report all cases quickly. Take samples and report all cases. And the last is the dispersal of sterile flies. Sterile fly alone cannot do the job. There are 5 things. We went through them, each one individually, and said, where are we with this?
In related news, the U.S. has temporarily banned the importation of Mexican cattle as nearby Guatemala continues to discover more New World screwworm infections. In turn, a Mexican cattle association continues to push for their government to ban the importation of cattle from Belize. Minister of Agriculture, Honorable Amaya, said on Friday that the Belize government continues to argue against a potential ban.
We have 26 new cases in Guatemala. Of those, 12 new cases, of which 11 were in Isabel and 1 was in Petén in the Sayacche area.
Is that not reason alone to consider this ban?
Ban Guatemala maybe, but not Belize.
From exporting?
Exactly. They have stopped. As a matter of fact, the Mexicans have been stopped from exporting cattle to the U.S. No, this is a serious matter, you know. Right? The USDA EFS has banned Mexico from exporting cattle into the USA for 1 swarm in Petén, southern part of Mexico. So this is how serious people look at the cattle industry. And the Mexican associations that represent 800,000 cattle farmers wrote to the Secretary of Agriculture telling him that asking him to ban us. And I said to them, we are the only country that have a program in place.
In other agriculture news, the minister addressed reports of contraband watermelons being sold on San Pedro and Burgers Key. Mai admitted that there needs to be better surveillance when it comes to monitoring available produce countrywide when one area is lacking in supply. He also added that the issue of contraband food products has always been a problem in San Pedro.
That's one of the problems we have when you have very porous borders, that if you have a problem with your production, with your supply, clearly there will be illegal importation. But San Pedro has always been a problem for us with contraband. Always, right? And so that doesn't surprise me that they have contraband in the market. But again, whenever you have bad weather and you lose your crops, you lose your hatapa, you lose your pepper, you lose your tomatoes, I mean, they will try to find a way to import. And maybe we do consider when we don't have, and our officers go to the field and ensure that there's no carrot, that there's no tomato, there's no cabbage, and then we import. You will find that you give a small license to import cabbage, and then you find out that, oh, a farmer in Valley Peace had cabbage, and then the wheeling up begins. Who never report this? You know, and so it is a constant challenge for us, right? And sometimes farmers don't report, and there are so many farmers, sometimes our officers sleep up. But if there's no product, somebody else supply it. And that's the challenge we have every time.
After the break, the 2024 Atlantic Basin hurricane season has come to an end. Stay tuned.
already.
November 30 brought to a close the 2024 Atlantic Basin hurricane season. Belize was thankfully spared from any major system, but flooding from Tropical Storm Sara that made landfall in Belize on November 17 still has large portions of the Belize district saturated with water as floodwaters move downriver. There were 18 named storms in the Atlantic Basin for 2024, and 11 became hurricanes, 5 of which were major. The above-average season featured a record-breaking ramp-up after a peak season lull. Dr. Omar Figueroa, standard bearer for Cayo North, has written the Chief Elections Officer Josephine Tamai for sanctions to be brought against persons involved in perpetrating electoral fraud in his division. Figueroa writes in the letter dated November 28 that their objection case, which ended in the court ordering that over 20 registered voters at one address be struck off the voters list, proved that there is a well-organized scheme of electoral fraud in which the principal occupants of households participated, and even a couple employees from the Cayo North Registration Office of the Elections and Boundaries Department. According to Figueroa, in one case, the principal occupant of a house where multiple non-residents were registered did not even know his address was used for that purpose. He adds that one of the 2 employees from the department they say engaged in questionable behavior registered people at her 1-bedroom government starter home, as well as at her parents' house, her uncle's house, and her nephew's house. Dr. Figueroa adds that the entire registration process used by the office in question is now suspect, and the integrity of the entire Cayo North voters list is now brought into question. Figueroa is asking for a meeting with Tamai to present all the evidence they have, but he also points out that a previous attempt to do so had been ignored by the Chief Elections Officer. The Belize City branch of the National Garifuna Council is, at this hour, honoring the life and legacy of Andy Palacio at a special mass that started at 6 this evening at the St. Martin de Porres Church in Lake Independence, Belize City. Palacio was born in Barranco, Toledo, 64 years ago on December 2, 1960. As a child, Palacio's love for music was apparent, but another passion of his was that of educating others. He became a teacher by profession and later formed a teachers' brigade and traveled to Garifuna communities in Nicaragua. Palacio's music career officially launched in 1981, and since then a legendary music career blossomed, as well as his advocacy for the Garifuna culture. As noted by a release issued by NGC Belize City, quote, "He left behind a rich legacy of songs, compositions, accolades including the UNESCO Artist for Peace, Womex Award, BBC 3 Awards for World Music Award in the Americas category, Garifuna Cultural Ambassador, and a host of family, friends, and fans. His greatest legacy are his children, Kami, Oani, Nita, Tara, and Kamau," end quote. In other news, a Gales Point Belize District man, Lionel Duani, is recuperating at the Southern Regional Hospital in Dangriga after being stabbed on Wednesday. Reports are that Duani and Gilbert Moore both got into a fight, and in the process, Duani was allegedly stabbed by Moore. ACP Gilberto Romero told the media that police are still searching for Moore.
Police responded to a stabbing at Gales Point, Manatee. Upon the arrival, they learned that Lionel Duhane had been taken to the Southern Regional Hospital for treatment. He was found there where he reported that he was involved in a fight with one Gilbert Moore, who stabbed him. He's in a stable condition. Gilbert Moore is presently wanted at this time for the crimes of attempt murder, dangerous harm, and use of deadly means of harm.
Do you know it? Yeah.
No, they had a fight. They met at that area in Gales Point, and the person proceeded to stab him.
Were they intoxicated?
Yes, they were.
But they knew each other before this?
Yeah, they knew each other.
They both live in Gales Point?
Yeah, they're both from Gales Point.
In court news, Inspector Christopher Martinez, who pleaded guilty to wounding businessman Aaron Flowers while he was detained at a police station, will have to spend his remaining 3 months behind bars after his appeal was denied in court on Friday. Inspector Martinez was sentenced to 5 months in jail for wounding. He appealed the conviction in the High Court, but it was dismissed, and a request for a stay of execution on the judgment was not heard. In making her decision, Justice Candice Nanton remarked that she found nothing wrong with the sentence handed down by the Chief Magistrate back in September, adding that she did not find the sentence shocking to Belizeans and that the inspector should consider himself lucky since appeals can be increased, and he got 5 months and not a year. Inspector Martinez was represented by Senior Counsel Hubert Elrington. On Friday, we reported that a dark gray with silver 2005 Mitsubishi Outlander SUV was missing since last Wednesday and that a mechanic was suspected of stealing it. Police are now searching for the mechanic, Jermaine Jurgensen. According to the owner of the SUV, he posted about the incident on Facebook on Friday night, and someone reached out saying he had seen the SUV in Dangriga. The battery, the radio, and the keys are still missing. Police are asking for anyone who may have information on the whereabouts of Jurgensen to contact Crime Stoppers at 922, use the P3 app, or contact the nearest police station. On a more positive note, Belizean-born Jamie J. Thompson, who is already internationally known and respected for his vision, professionalism, and commitment to excellence in the art form of dance, is once again placing Belize on the map with a publication in the book Caribbean Men in the Arts, published by Cambridge Scholars, that is Cambridge Scholars Publishing. Thompson, an adjunct professor at New York University, was invited to be a contributor to the book by co-editors Opal Palmer Adisa and Kino Sr. to share his experience and journey. The book is a collection of essays, interviews, poetry, and stories that showcase how different forms of manhood play out in artistic spaces. Thompson's chapter 16 of the book is titled Belize to Broadway, a journey through dance and masculinities. Thompson provided a snippet of his focus in the chapter.
In the book, I reflected on my experience with where I placed on the masculinity spectrum. Most people may not even consider it, but when your essence flows against the current, this awareness becomes the constant lens that you look at everything through in life. I liked dance and drama rather than basketball and football. The closest thing I had to the conventional athleticism was the ability to run left everybody if stray dog chase me. That difference between myself and the other boys around me left a lot of space for ridicule and bullying and emotional and psychological scarring. Gratefully, I've always had an instinctive resilience to anything that came against me. So, though I wrestled with my masculinity during that time, I transformed that energy into my creative and educational pursuits. Migrating to the US challenged me. Again, graduating and getting my first job also required me to step more into my true self and away from the parameters that was placed on me because of my difference. In hindsight, as I shared in the chapter, I believe it was my incessant wrestle with the narrow gaze of masculinity in the Caribbean that led me to discovering my talents. I think it also helped with the fortitude to pursue my dreams, and it also allowed me to have me to have some versatility in my career roles. The readers can expect to recognize how Caribbean men are creating more varied and wholesome ways to talk about their masculinity, also demonstrating how the variety can engage and thrive in the same space without violence and exclusionary attitude. I think the arts has always been a safe haven for that.
The book can be purchased on the Cambridge Scholars Publishing website at cambridgescholars.com. And as part of the Belize Blue Bond Conservation Agreement signed in November 2021 with the Nature Conservancy TNC, the government of Belize must develop a Marine Spatial Plan MSP. We dubbed our MSP the Belize Sustainable Ocean Plan, and it is being developed over a 5-year period. The work started in 2022. In essence, the plan includes mapping out our marine space based on the uses of different groups and individuals to ensure there is sustainability. It therefore involves much consultation and also has to take into consideration current and future uses. This week, TNC brought together stakeholders from Belize and Barbados, which entered into a debt for conservation agreement after Belize and must also develop an MSP. The goal is to learn from each other during a week of activities. We hear from Beverly Wade, Director for Belize's Blue Bond and Finance Permanence Unit, as well as from Julie Robinson, outgoing Belize Program Manager for TNC.
Marine spatial planning is pretty new globally. If you look at it, it is one of the go-to tools now because it calls for an integrated approach to your ocean resources. But if you look at how many countries really have a functioning marine spatial plan, there are not as many. And so we keep learning from each other. So we learn from those who had one before and we look at how we can improve on it. So I would say that's one of the main challenges, is to get sustained participation, because you get participation, but how do you continue to promote and garner the kind of buy-in that you need and the kind of participation that allows you to have a plan that when it is eventually launched, that we all, not only the conservationists, not only the fishers, but everybody, the tour guides, the people who are thinking about development in the blue space, the everyday citizen, feel that they have had a part of this and it's something that they can now look forward to.
This is a participatory process, and we need to be able to engage with, consult with, get the input from all users. So this includes the tourism sector, the fisheries sector, coastal developers, just people in general. It's been a long process, and I know that we need to put more emphasis to be able to do even more consultations. So this is an area I think that we would love to be able to improve on. It's one of the things that I spoke about inside just now, is that the importance of stakeholders in this process is absolutely critical. So we've done a lot of work, and when I say we, I'm speaking on behalf of the entire team. It's not just the Nature Conservancy, but there was a long process of engaging with all the coastal communities, with all the users, as many as was possible, but there's always a possibility of doing more. And so as we go forward, we'll continue to do that engagement and continue to gather information and continue to work with the stakeholders to determine what is the best use of our ocean space, in what areas, and work together as a team. Through a process that's called ocean use surveys that the Coastal Zone and TNC and other teams went out and did, they actually mapped out, sat down with community members from all the way from Sartineja, Gales Point, down to Barranco, sat down and started literally drawing out on a map where are areas that maybe are critical for protection, where are areas that maybe is really critical for traditional uses that we need to maintain those uses, areas for development. And so all of this has been mapped out. So it's based on a lot of the information that we have gathered from interviews and from consultations. So they're all stacked up on top of one another, and as we get more information, the picture gets a little bit clearer in terms of where are the areas that, like I said, need protection, what are the areas for tourism, what are the areas for fisheries, coastal development, energy. So it's not just about current uses. A marine spatial plan is also about thinking into the future. What are the future uses? In the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, what do we want to use our ocean space for?
We also spoke with the team lead from Barbados, Dr. Leo Brewster, director of their Coastal Zone Management Unit, about how they take into consideration the concerns of fishers.
We have very few marine conservation, marine co-managed areas or marine protected areas around Barbados. We just have one, right? We have two on the books that we're looking to try to roll out through this MSP process. The biggest concern has always been that fishermen feel that once they hear marine spatial planning, they will be excluded from certain spaces. So we've been trying to gather information from them which would give them the jump start to say, this is where we like to fish, and therefore we can protect this area for fishing, right? And then anything else has to then come in and work with them in that space rather than trying to be seen as being exclusionary. That has been working somewhat, but there's still some level of distrust in that approach, right? Because they still feel that government can come and take away their opportunity to be fishing. We've been trying to let it be recognized that while the sea is big and everyone has free access to the open space, you can't claim all, right? So that's where we've been working with them, and the response generally has been reasonable. We know that by March next year, we will be having to have the much further detailed discussions with them. But based even on preliminary fishing information that we've been able to receive, including like vessel monitoring information as to where the guys are going, we're starting to get a much better representation as to where they like to go generally, and then we will just cluster them in that space and then indicate these are the areas when we start going back to them as saying, based on the information that you've provided, these are the areas that we know you like to go to. So if we start boundarying these for you, is that going to work effectively? And we're hoping that there will be a favorable response.
And with that, we have come to the end of our newscast. A repeat can be viewed on this station later tonight at 9 and again tomorrow at midday. Join us again tomorrow for another news broadcast. I am Marisol Amaya. Have a safe and enjoyable evening.